For number 19, we're going to be doing a volume problem, and it says the base of a solid is the region bounded by the parabolas y equals x squared and y equals 2 minus x squared. So let me draw that first. So y equals x squared would look like this, and 2 minus x squared is an upside down parabola that's shifted up 2. So we have something like that. So this area that's enclosed by both, that is the base of a solid. And it says cross sections perpendicular to the x-axis are squares with one side lying along the base. So what that means is if we take one slice of this, and this is popping out of the board here, it's going to look like a square. Its base is sitting on this thing. So if you think about it, every line, vertical line you could draw through this would then look like a square. So we need to figure out what is the volume of the solid. So remember, to get your volume, you need to integrate the area and then use some delta x component. So our slices of area are going to be delta x wide. So the volume of just some cross-sectional slice of this is going to be delta x, which is the width of the slice, very small, times that area. Now that area, that's a square, so it's going to be, let's say, s squared. So now we just need to figure out what is s. What is the side? What is the length of the side of one of these squares? Well, it's the distance from this curve to this curve. So that's going to be 2 minus x squared minus x squared. So 2 minus x squared is your top graph, x squared is your bottom graph. So if you do the top one minus the bottom one, you get your distance from one to the other. So this is 2 minus 2x squared. So if we integrate this, we're going to get the volume of the entire thing. So the last thing we need to figure out is where are we integrating from and to. So that's this x value, whatever this is, and this x value. So where does this stop? Well, to figure that out, we need to do x squared equals 2 minus x squared. If we set these graphs equal, we'll get their intersection points, and then we're ready to go. So if we add this over, 2x squared equals 2 means x equals plus or minus 1. So we're going from negative 1 to 1. So now that we've got our integral, negative 1 to 1, we're integrating s squared. This delta x becomes the dx in our integration form. So we have 2 minus 2x squared squared, because this is s, and we're doing s squared because we have both sides, dx. From there, we're ready to do it. We just have to do our antiderivative and expand all of this. So before we do the antiderivative, let's expand this. What we can do first is we can take a 4 out of the integral. If we take factor 2 out of this, it's squared, so we'd have to take it out as 4. So we just have 1 minus x squared squared, which would give us 1 minus 2x squared plus x to the 4th dx. If you didn't take that 4 out, you would just get 4 minus 8 plus 4, and then you could take the 4 out afterwards. So now we're ready to do the antiderivative. So we get x. This one would be minus 2/3 x to the 3rd. And the last one would be plus x to the 5th over 5. Now we're going from negative 1 to 1. So you can see here that that none of these are going to be 0, so we're going to have to plug in everything here. So when we plug in 1 first, we get 1 minus 2/3 plus 1/5. And we have to subtract away what we get when we plug in negative 1. So if we plug in negative 1, we get negative 1. So negative 1 cubed would be negative 1, so we get plus 2/3. And then negative 1 to the 5th is still negative, so we get minus 1/5. if we take a 4 out of both, since we can, we're just left with all the inside parts. So we get 1 minus negative 1 is 2. We get minus 2/3 minus 2/3 minus 4/3. 1/5 minus negative 1/5 is plus 2/5. So you see there, the way that worked out, every one of these terms just got doubled because they had a negative and the opposite sign. So the last thing we should do is just get a common denominator to put these together. Then we can multiply by 4. So the common denominator here of 3 and 5 is 15. So we're going to get 30 over 15 minus 20 over 15 plus 6 over 15. So 30 minus 20 is 10. 10 plus 6 is 16. And 16 times 4 gives us 64 over 15 as our final volume. And that works out to be answer choice D.